What if one of the most important kings in human history was almost erased from it, in the silence of the Egyptian desert, where the sand remembers more than history books ever could? There lived a ruler whose name barely survived the weight of time. Long before pyramids dominated the skyline, long before pharaohs were worshipped as living gods, before Egypt became eternal in stone, there was Semerkhet. He's not a legend like he's not a conqueror like Ramesses the Great. You won't find his name on every museum display or in every history classroom. Semerkhet ruled nearly 5,000 years ago during Egypt's First Dynasty, at a time when the idea of a united nation was still fragile, experimental, and dangerously new. His story isn't carved in towering monuments. It's whispered through broken seals, shattered stone, and unanswered questions buried deep beneath the sands of Saqqara. To an audience accustomed to stories of bold founders and revolutionary leaders, Semerkhet represents something different. What if the real story of civilization isn't about glorious triumphs, but about sheer survival? Ancient Egypt did not rise fully formed like a Hollywood epic. It was built piece by piece, through conflict, improvisation, and a whole lot of belief. The First Dynasty followed the revolutionary unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. For the very first time, one ruler claimed authority over an entire land under a single crown. Just think about how radical that idea was. Imagine the early United States under the Articles of Confederation. Fragile, uncertain, constantly experimenting with how power should work. Higipetin Semerkhetes. Tam was facing its own version of that instability. He inherited a throne that was far from secure. The art of writing itself was still new and developing. The systems of administration were just being invented. Loyalty was a fragile concept, and the threat of rebellion was never far away. And then, the historical records start to get a little uneasy. Semerkhet's name does appear in the ancient king lists, but often with a sense of hesitation. Scribes who lived centuries later included some troubling notes. Some of them shortened the length of his reign. Others hinted at disaster, perhaps famine, civil unrest, or even divine displeasure. It's incredibly rare in Egyptian history for a king to be remembered so ambiguously. That alone makes Semerkhet an extraordinary figure. Unlike the later pharaohs, he didn't leave behind pyramids piercing the sky. Instead, archaeologists have uncovered fragments, small stone vessels inscribed with his name, impressions from his royal seal, scattered relics of an authority that was clearly struggling to assert itself. His tomb at Saqqara is both impressive and deeply unsettling. It's larger than some of the tombs of his predecessors, yet it's also marked by signs of disruption and reuse in later periods. It seems that even in death, his legacy was being contested. And then there is the most haunting piece of evidence of all. Subsidiary burials, human sacrifices, people who were interred alongside the king, meant to serve him in the afterlife. This grim practice did exist in early dynastic Egypt, but during Semerkhet's reign, it appears with a chilling intensity. What does that tell us about the nature of power at the dawn of monarchy? In a nation that was still trying to define what kingship even meant, it's possible that authority depended just as much on fear as it did on faith. The artifacts from his reign show a certain level of refinement, but also a strange inconsistency. Some of the craftsmanship continues the traditions of the rulers who came before him, but other elements suggest a sudden, dramatic change. This has led scholars to debate a fundamental question. Was Semerkhet a rightful heir to the throne? Or was he a ruler who seized power during a moment of instability? His name itself seems to invoke divine companionship, companion of the gods. Yet history did not preserve him kindly. Later king lists, compiled hundreds of years afterward during the powerful New Kingdom, subtly distanced themselves from him. In a culture that was obsessed with order, continuity, and the concept of cosmic balance, even a whisper of chaos was enough to stain a king's entire reign. But here lies another fascinating question. What if Semerkhet's struggles actually forced Egypt to evolve? After his death, the practice of human sacrifice completely disappears from royal burials. The administrative systems of the state grow more structured and efficient. The use of writing becomes more standardized. Governance itself strengthens. It's entirely possible that his turbulent reign became a catalyst, the painful push that Egypt needed to transform itself from a fragile experiment into an enduring state. To us today, Semerkhet feels invisible compared to the gleaming golden mask of Tutankhamun or the colossal statues of Ramesses. But history is not only shaped by triumphant icons, it is shaped by leaders navigating extreme instability. It's shaped by flawed rulers who find themselves standing at critical turning points. It's shaped by those moments when civilization could have fractured and fallen apart, but somehow it didn't. Semerkhet was a king caught between two different eras. He stood between the old world of tribal authority and the new world of a centralized state. He was caught between the ancient tradition of ritual sacrifice and the new idea of symbolic tradition. He existed on the blurry line between myth and recorded history. As we imagined his world, the desert comes alive. Early dynastic settlements rise from the sand. Mud brick walls glow in the flickering torchlight. We can almost see the scribes carving symbols that were still new to human hands. Hear the wind move across empty courtyards where the fate of a nation once trembled. This isn't a story of spectacle. It's a story of fragility. In American history, we often celebrate the founding fathers. Washington, Jefferson, figures whose legacies feel secure and monumental. But imagine for a moment if those early experiments in governance had failed. What if that hard-won unity had fractured? What if the nation had dissolved before it ever had a chance to solidify? Semerkhet ruled during exactly that kind of uncertainty. Egypt was not yet the eternal civilization we think of. It was improvising, day by day, trying to survive. As the sun sets over Saqqara, the shadows stretch long across the ancient stone. The desert grows quiet. The wind moves across the plateau where his tomb still rests, weathered by time, partially forgotten. No towering monument proclaims his greatness. No golden mask immortalizes his face. What remains is a question, and sometimes those questions can reveal more about our past than any triumph ever could. Before there were empires, before there was codified law, before organized religion shaped entire continents, there were just people trying to hold society together with belief and authority. Semerkhet was one of them, and through his silence, we hear something profound. Civilization is not born in certainty, it is forged in uncertainty. A king once ruled here, nearly erased by time. Yet through the fragments, through the doubt, through the ambiguity of his story, we get to witness the birth pains of history itself. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.